Hey guys, it's been a minute since I've done a video, and as you can see from the background behind me, the scenery's changed as well. A lot of things. Moving, just so much moving. I'm sick of boxes at this point. But anyways, I wanted to get back into video making, YouTubing, whatever you call it these days, and I thought I would do so by talking about something that has kind of been on my mind for a minute, and something I actually wrote about on my Substack, if you happen to check that out. I want to talk about docketing. First, we need some context here. I currently play in a D&D bronze team called Drakkenheim, created by Serious DM. I learned about that through watching Dundermoose's awesome stream about the game itself.
We're going to learn the lessons learned that these guys did in Drakkenheim.
And I also followed up with Rule of Thul's breakdown of the previous phase of the game. I think it was called Age of Power. Not long after that, I got the invitation to join, and since the game looked like a hoot and a half, I said yes. What followed was perhaps the most fun I've ever had in a D&D game to date. It marked a shift in the way I thought about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons in general, and introduced me to some pretty wild concepts. The biggest of these was SCENE, which stands for Serious Events, Evidence, and Narratives. This was a mechanism of play created by Serious DM for his campaign, and one that was probably my first big introduction when I joined the game. In brief, every action the players make in the game is written by the players and sent along to a neutral account that posts them anonymously. It's a fantastic system in play, and not the only one I would actually learn in this game. I'd say we were about a couple months into the game when one of my subordinates... I actually run a nation in the game of Drakkenheim. And as the nation leader, I have other players that operate under me as subordinates. Well, one of these subordinates, Vizier Van Dyke, approached us all with an idea for convergence with other players. We would invite all the nations to our lands to fight in arena battles in which the threat of death was removed. Basically, just a way to have fun, let loose, and see who the better player was. Sounded awesome, actually. But I had minor apprehensions that I had to push aside that stemmed from not being, fully fitted into my role as the nation's leader just quite yet. Quick digression, I found that stepping up when I feel these kinds of apprehensions always leads to some kind of enlightenment or growth. Anyway, this convergence that we cooked up would be called the Sorcerous Slam, and have contestants battle it out in 4-man free-for-alls in some kind of bracketing system. Death was taken off the table, as I said, as were its saves. You hit 0, you're done. We all had good fun at brainstorming, and even came up with fun ways to work the event in our favor. When we presented it to Serious DM himself, he responded with an effusive sick. The scene post went out, and that was that. My top guy was on it, and I could take care of the super secret project I had cooking. Upon our return from the super secret project, we had guests waiting for us, and they were quite impatient. Turns out there had been some confusion about when the event would take place. Us. The confused party was us. We had specified a certain date in the scene, and then assumed we were doing the shindig a week later. Look, wizards are very studious about the things that interest them, and scheduling is just not one of those things, all right? To understand why we found ourselves in this diplomatic crisis, all you need to keep in mind is that travel among the nations is expensed from the citizens that we tax, and how long the journey is going to take. What this means is that our blunder would cost everyone else extra gold if we didn't get this party started at its original time, which in turn would possibly sour any current negotiations going on behind the scenes. Assuming we had taken care of it, I looked to my vizier for some confirmation that the Sorcerous slam was a go. He threw a chair. In a short span of time, I had to create the aforementioned 4-man bracket and make sure everyone was accounted for. At this point, I'd assumed we'd be getting on a Discord chat to play this out in real time, and that Sorcerous would be refereeing. I shared my first draft of the brackets, and they were kind of garbage, actually, owing to the fact that I'd never really organized a competitive tournament bracket in my life. Thankfully, Orgruk and Rex Thulor were on hand to help me make it make sense. And I did, which was ratified when Thulor sent me the nicest thing I had ever read that day. Sick. So the first issue cropped up almost immediately, and frankly should have been expected by yours truly. At no point could every contestant be present for any given match. We noodled it in the chat some before Sorcerous suggested he would take orders from us for our characters and run fights on his own time. We thought it was a great idea and proceeded. You might recognize this as Docketing. Simply put, is just leaving your characters on the table with orders to be run by whoever is available. The idea was pretty wild to me, admittedly at the time, and it didn't really click right away. After running the first few matches, Sorcerous asked if I would take over for him, so he could work on clubhouse matters. I said yes, before my brain realized what was going on, and soon found myself with a myriad of cheat sheets and maps. He explained the need for quick references to ensure docketing didn't eat up too much time, and then bounced, leaving me feeling a little bit like Jack's babysitter.
Campfire.
The maps in question were simple colored grids generated in Excel, Google Sheets, with a key for terrain squares and tabs for rounds. I was given carte blanche to remix these however I saw fit for each battle, but considering that the maps themselves were already pretty sick, I ended up just swapping tiles every now and then and keeping the general structure of them. And here's an example of said map that we'll be using in today's example. See? Concise, engaging, sick. My first match went maddeningly slow, and I'd be remiss if I didn't provide some context here. In 5th edition D&D, the combat is broken down into rounds, which are then subdivided into turns. These are governed by the initiative roll, which places the players in the turn order. You are familiar with that if you watch any degree of tabletop D&D YouTube. The players can move their speed, make some kind of melee or ranged attack, or if they're a spellcaster, they can make a magic attack. When the players are all playing their characters in this way, this can take a range of time that would make your cable and internet service provider technician blush. In my case, it took me almost 3 hours. 3 hours. I started this match by placing the combatants on the map that I just showed you, and then rolling their initiative, which led us to the following. In the first spot, we have Throdale. In the second slot, we have Joaquin. The third spot, we have Rex. And then the fourth spot is Lizard Folk Chief. I opened up a notepad file and started jotting down what happened in each turn, making sure to create a new tab in the map spreadsheet for the start of each new round. There weren't a lot of player orders in my first match, and like a putz, I didn't even think to ask. Instead, I tried to galaxy brain how the players would run their characters in the arena battle and base every action off of that. It should come as no surprise that it took me forever to do this. I got stuck in the quagmire of trying too hard to be optimal, but not too optimal. Put another way, I delved too greedily and too deep. Suboptimal play might be the accurate way to play a PC, but was that how the character would be run by the player? If I'm too optimal, would I be no different than a computer game on autopilot? That would be boring as hell, and most certainly not be sick. About halfway through my first match, I realized an error in my Galaxy Brain method that required I start over at the halfway point of the match. Absolutely devastating.
It feels like somebody took my heart and dropped it into a bucket of boiling tears.
And so I deleted the errant tabs on my spreadsheet map, cleared the lines of my notepad file, and then found a quiet room away from anyone who could hear, and let loose a barrage of curses. I blasted out enough heinous material to necessitate a jam-packed confession on Sunday. From there, I started again, but focused on a much more basic, this is what I see, now what do I do approach to running the PCs. This worked a lot better and sped me through the remainder of my first match. I also simplified writing out the actions and their results, sticking to a just the facts ma'am mentality. Some flowery prose might have been nice, but considering I was 3 hours into just one of these matches I had to run, it would have been impractical. By the end of the Sorcerous Slam, I had my docketing down to a science. I could set up the map, lay out the pieces, and take notes in a fraction of the time it took my first match. I started requesting player orders, which helped considerably. The last two matches went from 4v4 to 1v1, and sped things up even further. In the final championship match between Rex Thulor and Joachim, I could be an enthusiastic... In the final championship bout between Rex Thulor and Joachim, I could be an enthusiastic spectator as well as a referee. The orders and the dice were telling the story, and it was epic as hell. Looking back on the experience now, I would have pushed harder for player orders, I think. I could optimize my processes until the cows came home, but it was the player orders that ultimately moved the needle. In fact, I would assert that giving detailed instructions to the Docketeer is how the player actually plays the characters when he's absent. Without player orders, docketing falls apart pretty quickly and is no different than asking the players to keep your PC safe while you skip a session to grab an Orange Julius or whatever it is you folks who skip sessions do. Simply put, you do not have docketing without player orders. Would I do this again? Yeah, in a heartbeat. Docketing in good order keeps the game moving and is a salve against one of the most pernicious elements of tabletop gaming ever: scheduling conflicts. As an adult male with a myriad of adult obligations, having this tool at my disposal is a boon. It allows me to be there for my fellow man in comradeship and good play, and vice versa. Not to put too fine a point on it, but docketing is sick. As a final note before I go, I want to call attention to an account named Crossface, who has written a lot about campaign characters and things that pertain exactly to what I just told you. So I'm going to link them in the description. Follow, read again, share with your fellow man, share with your enemies. Check that guy out. Awesome fellow. Oh, there's so many things. Check out B-Dubs' post about docketing and scene and all those that just break down the technicalities of it. And follow Serious DM, who created an amazing campaign. That's really it for the tongue bathing. I guess I will see you guys later on this internet, and so long!